The delegate from Washington, Delegate Pillion.
Mr. Speaker, I rise for a point of personal privilege.
Delegate has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, members of the House, one of the greatest challenges we continue to face in the Commonwealth is an opioid epidemic that is on track to claim more lives this year than last. Tragically, 2017 was the deadliest year for overdoses, with more than 1,500 lives cut short in Virginia. Throughout last fall, we saw almost every campaign in Virginia make promises to address this opioid crisis. Just over the weekend, we learned that legendary singer and songwriter Tom Petty lost his life to an overdose involving opioids last October. According to his family, Petty suffered from several health problems and was prescribed various medications to deal with the pain. It's their hope, by sharing his story, others can have a better understanding of how serious this opioid addiction can be. Sadly, Mr. Speaker, we hear families sharing this story in our districts over and over again. We even hear these stories in this very chamber. An individual suffers an injury, is prescribed opioids to help cope with the pain, and they're usually unaware of just how powerful and dangerous these drugs can be. Within a matter of days, they are at the mercy of these drugs, and their lives hang in the balance. While the exact situation and outcome may vary, one thing is consistent. This disease can happen to anyone. Age, gender, race, ethnicity, education, and wealth have no bearing. As seen with Tom Petty, you can have all the money and access to the best doctors and treatments and still find yourself in the throes of this addiction. Last year, this body was part of sweeping reforms directed at implementing new measures for more responsible prescribing, enhancing quality comprehensive treatment, removing barriers to treatment for substance-exposed infants, and enhancing educational standards for healthcare professionals in training. We also facilitated better access to naloxone to rescue victims of overdose. We passed these measures unanimously through both chambers, and the governor signed them into law. We should all be proud of the work we have done. These reforms have already shown to be making an impact at reducing the supply chain of prescription drugs that were flooding our communities. The legislation, the efforts by the Board of Medicine have resulted in nearly 20% decrease in the number of prescriptions for the most powerful opioids, and about a 40% decrease in overall opioid prescriptions in the Commonwealth just since March. We saw hundreds of people participate in regional meetings across the Commonwealth, coming together to focus on protecting the most vulnerable victims in this crisis, our infants and our children. And crucially, more than 10,000 people have received the Revive training that can save someone from losing their life to an overdose. The General Assembly also invested $22 million in addiction and recovery treatment services, the ARTS program, to ensure that medication-assisted treatment includes crucial counseling that is needed to adequately treat the disease of addiction instead of simply trading one prescription for another. We've also seen, Mr. Speaker, the pilot program, the HART program that was started in Chesterfield County. HART focuses on moving away from institutionalizing people in the criminal justice system and starts to address the medical issues associated with the disease of addiction to break the cycle. We finally have realized we can't arrest our way out of this crisis. These all are important steps that we have worked to implement since the end of session last year. While Virginia has now been recognized as a national leader in tackling this epidemic, it is clear our work is just getting started. After the election, I, along with Delegate Herring, chaired Governor Northam's Opioid and Substance Abuse Policy Committee. One of the reasons we have been able to make progress on this issue is because we have worked in a bipartisan, really a nonpartisan manner. This must be our guide as we seek to move forward. This year, we will consider legislation that strengthens the PMP, provides more complete investigation of overdoses so we can craft better intervention strategies, create better communication between hospitals and primary care providers, and track how naloxone is actually being prescribed, just to name a few. This builds on an important philosophy of approaching this crisis with a shared focus on prevention and treatment. We have too many people, too many families, and too many communities looking to us to get it right. In the words of Tom Petty, we won't back down. Let's get to work.